these bad cultures that, in my opinion, is damaging not only music but everything we do at a cultural level, which is immediate response and immediate reaction. You want instant gratification out of everything. This song, even though short, is the antithesis to that. Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna be analyzing and listening to a track by The Cure for the first time. The track in question is, of course, Just Like Heaven, one of their most popular songs, and it's a song that I actually happen to like by The Cure. And spoiler alert, I'm telling you that because I happen not to like The Cure at all. It's not a band that I despise, necessarily speaking, but it's something that I don't resonate with that much. But not because of that, I would stop myself from enjoying their music and actually being able to appreciate what they do. And this track is actually one that I truly like, and well, let's analyze it together because it's a very good song. With that being said, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, but using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand knowledge when it comes to music production, songwriting, and of course music appreciation. So, if this is your jam, let's rock and roll. Here we go. So here we go, Just Like Heaven by The Cure. Sorry for interrupting, but you know the drill. First and foremost, damn, did you realize that the track itself, even though it's no longer than 3 minutes and something, 3 minutes and a half, the introduction to it, the instrumental introduction was almost a minute by its own. How much have we fallen, don't you think? Because that was the style at the time. This is from '87, if I recall correctly. And this begs the question, why would you put such an amazing and incredibly long, based on the percentage of how much music is actually involved in or how long the track is compared to the introduction? Why would you put so much emphasis on the introduction itself? I, for one, happen to be a sucker for this kind of introductions. Why? Probably because it kind of reminds me of the time on which radio hosts were still a thing, and they introduced the tracks during the introduction of the song, right? Here it comes. This is The Cure. This is Just Like Heaven. You get what I'm trying to say, right? But it's no longer a case, and especially now that everybody has access to streaming services, and these bad cultures that, in my opinion, is damaging not only music but everything we do at a cultural level, which is immediate response and immediate reaction. You want instant gratification out of everything. This song, even though short, is the antithesis to that. I wasn't expecting that, to be frank. It's been a while since I rocked this track with this level of attention. Now, speaking of the song itself, the first thing I would like to point out is at the amount of reverb on the snare is gigantic. Reverb, for those of you who don't know, is an effect that we use to recreate the sense of a space or to create an enhancement version or enhanced version of a space through the use of sound by artificial methods. And in this case, it sounds like this reverb. Okay, that's the reverb applied to my voice, but now see what it does to the sound of a snare. That was the snare by its own, but with the effect, huge change, right? The reverb itself is used to create a larger than life sound that makes the whole thing kind of spacey. And it was quite in vogue back in the 80s. Is usually known as gated reverb. And without having to go that deep into the rabbit hole of the techniques involved in producing that sound. Basically speaking, whenever the drummer hits the snare is triggering the sound of the reverb, and it comes back. But as soon as the snare is stops making sound, the reverb itself also collapses in and of itself, creating this kind of effect that is very reminiscent to the 80s. Now, I gotta point out as well as the beautiful arrangement at the beginning, or basically throughout the entirety of the track, because you see that there are plenty of layers of guitars. You got, I think, a baritone guitar. You also got a regular electric guitar. You got an acoustic guitar, and all of them playing in tandem, creating this thick and very harmonically rich layer that I quite enjoyed. I happen to be, just for sake of transparency, not a big fan of the Cure because, well, I don't have issues with them. They are a good band. They simply don't resonate with me. But this is one of those songs that I actually like. I particularly love the introduction. Very melodic and kind of nostalgic, don't you think? It has that particular kind of, oh yeah, I remember those days. They were slightly better, I think. Allegedly. So yeah, let's keep rocking because, well, the track's almost finished. But let's keep rocking the track, and then we're going to be analyzing the rest of the instrumentation and the mix itself once I talk back to you. Here we go. Let's continue.
Spinning all that dizzy air, kiss the face and kiss the neck. Dream of all the different ways I had to make her grow. Why are you so far away? She said, but won't you ever know that I'm in love with you? That I'm in love with you.
That was a cool one.
You, soft and lonely. You, lost and lonely. You, stranger's angels dancing in the deepest oceans to steal the water. You're just like a dream, just like a dream.
Sorry for interrupting. But once again, wow, this song, the orchestration is very beautiful. I didn't remember it being this. Still, even though it's simplistic in nature, it's very rich in content. Does that make sense to you? Because it's not one of those tracks that is like big and in scope, but still it manages to create this beautiful ambience, this beautiful sentimental or emotional impact on you just by the virtue of it being properly arranged. Wow, I wasn't expecting it to be this good. Again, yeah. Now, another thing that I would like to point out, and I forgot to mention during the first introduction, the first intervention, is the use of effects on the guitar. There is an effect that is super big. It's part of the sound of the 80s as well, and it's called chorus, which when you apply chorus to something, it starts to create a slight copies of the sound and detunes it slightly and merge them together with the original signal, creating a sound similar to this. As you can hear right now, my voice is affected by chorus, and it creates this kind of wishy-washy effect that is, well, chorus-like, right? And of course, the name, if you are wondering where does it comes from the concept of an actual choir. Because a choir, what makes it sound majestic, big, and bombastic, and everything that makes a choir sound the way it does, is the fact that you got plenty of people that not all of them are perfectly in tune. They are almost there, but the pitch will vary from a singer to singer, creating this richer and much more fuller sound. That is what makes music sound the way it does, harmonics. Now, let's take a look at the screen because it's time to discuss the mix. The mix, it's such a creature of its era. It's very 80s sounding. It makes me think of everything from that era, including shoulder pads, hair dust, hairspray, and everything that makes me think of the 80s. Well, this song represents them in droves. Why? Well, the tone of the song itself, and you can see it here on the first section of the analyzer, which, by the way, this is Decibel, which is the tool we use to analyze music through the use of a visual medium. In here, we got the highest point in volume of the frequencies, of all of the frequencies that corresponds to the human hearing range. 20,000 being the lowest, all the way up to 20,000 hertz, okay? 20 to 20,000, sorry, correcting myself. And this is clearly a mix from the 80s because we don't have the bombastic, stupidly punchy low end that we usually found on much more modern productions. Usually, you used to see some form of bump over here, and you'll see that most of the information, the loudest points of the track, are actually taking place in the low, mids, and mid register over here. This is where most of the super high sizzling and detail of the mix will be found, and is the highs, of course. And in here, we don't have that much information, which usually tends to be kind of harsh to our human ears. But in here, we got this silky tone to the track. It's a beautiful mix. It's not the way that I would like to mix my own music, for that matter, but I can recognize the beauty of it because it sounds unique and genuine, don't you think? It has this kind of honest to God uh, quality to it. Why? Because it's not bombastic, it's not overhyped. It sounds beautifully produced, well crafted, but not overdone. Make sense? I hope it does. And now, mid range, very, very pronounced. Why is that? Well, we got plenty of mid range instruments. If you think about it, we got like four or six, three guitars. The bass is not that boomy sounding. It's kind of working on the mid range as well, and the drums they're not tuned down that much, so they have plenty of attack. And well, it's projected here, reflected here, and also Robert Smith's voice. He's not necessarily high pitched singer, so makes sense. My only question is, I wonder if this spike here is the actual snare because it's way too loud. And the snare itself is very prominent in the mix because every time that the snare is hit, you can hear it. It kind of pushes you away. But yeah, it might be me. Now, over here, we got the second section of analyzer, and this is where we're going to be able to analyze the loudness of the track throughout time. And this is what is known as dynamic range. For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, dynamic range stands for the correlation between the lowest point in volume with the highest point in volume throughout time. That's important because we as human beings, when something's quiet, it feels intimate and much more closer to us, right? And when something's louder, it becomes much more exciting and also larger in scope. And you can imagine that that relationship, when you listen to something like music, adds an extra layer of storytelling elements. Get me? Now, over here, it's important because even though this is a short track, the track itself develops correctly. This is introduction. And you can see that it's not as loud as the point on which the drums are part of the track. This is the reason why when the introduction takes us to the moment on which the rest of the band joins, it feels much more impactful and you begin to actually bob your head around the track, right? That's because, well, the track ramps up in volume, you push the faders on your mixer, on your mixing desk, and that slight push creates an extra level of excitement. And we as listeners, not necessarily speaking, will hear the increment in volume. But what we actually feel is a bigger hit, a bigger level of excitement. Make sense? Make sense? Let's continue. You'll see that the other section of the track, which is the second half, we don't see that much of a bump. Why? Again, this is due to the fact that this track is very short. It's 3 minutes long. So if you have plenty of changes in dynamics in a track such as this one, it will feel a little bit jarring and kind of overdone. And it doesn't make sense also from a musical perspective because the track is kind of uplifting yet melancholic sounding. And if you have those funky moments of intensity all over the place, you will ruin the actual emotion that is part of the song. So this is not necessarily surprising, and it makes sense. It's the right move. Another thing, you'll see that this is the moment in which the piano reach its final stage, and then the reintroduction of the intro. You see that they ramp up in volume here, but it's just a slight bump because it's probably the final section of the drum fill with the crescendo of energy and music at the end of the instrumental section. Well done, right? Okay, let's finish this track, and we will give our final comments. Here we go.
Into shape. Must have been asleep for
Another thing that I forgot to mention, that final instrument, the thing at the end, it's clearly a string machine. A string machine is something like the synthesizer that I got behind me, and it's actually something that you will be able to see right now in front of you. The one that I got here is a Krumar Performer, and it sounds exactly the way that the last note you heard coming out of the song sounds like. I don't know exactly which model they used. This one that I got was made famous by Duran Duran, and it's of course another beast from that era. And I love the sound of those things. It's basically a synthesizer, okay? But it's called a string machine because it's trying its best to get as close as possible to the sound of an orchestra, or if I ever put it, the sound of a string arrangement. And it clearly fails miserably at it, but it's a very good sound. And it was all over the place in this track. And The Cure is not a stranger to the use of synthesizers, from what I remember. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Another thing that I didn't mention is that the guitars are super loud, super loud in the mix. And also, this section here, this mysterious spike, it's the singing voice. There were points in which he goes a little bit higher in volume, and makes sense. I gotta say that I love the tone of the voice in this album as well. It's very well positioned. I don't happen to be a huge fan of his vocal style, but it delivers. And also, this track itself is it's incredibly influential because these guys are actually probably the sound of most of the bands from the 80s, don't you think? Super influential because there are plenty of bands that have been influenced by these guys, particularly guitar tone and the composition of the songs, even the arrangement. Super influential, particularly on early 90s stuff. Do you think? Well, let me know. But whatever, that's my own opinion. The whole point of these videos is for us to have a conversation. So please let me know what you think about The Cure and this particular track. And if you got any question, please let me know in the comment section down below regarding music production stuff if you are in. With that being said, thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and if you want to support this channel, please make sure to subscribe, leave a like, because YouTube doesn't care about you watching this video. And if you want to support the channel, well, just by liking the video, you don't know how much it helps. So please do. And of course, you can join our Discord to keep the conversation going where we talk about music that doesn't suck, such as this one from time to time. So with that being said, thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and as every single time I meet you, I gotta remind, words are hard, but as with every single time that I meet you, I gotta remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that I will see ya.